Welcome to our Free Speech Zone, where we do a deep dive into trauma and reintegration. This is Combat Citizen. Welcome back to the Combat Citizen Trauma and Reintegration Podcast, where we do a deep dive into your trauma and your integration. So we got a special couple episodes this time. So kind of just like last time with Carl Monger and the Gallant Few organization, I thought I'd kind of bring on somebody that works with veterans, helping them out with transition and that kind of thing. So I've got Joy Montgomery, who works with Reboot Camp. So welcome, Joy.
Thank you. This is a wonderful thing you're doing.
Thank you. So let's get. So I want to get started. Just wanted to do talk about yourself. Kind of do a nice little introduction, and then and just have a little talk about what you do and help veterans out.
All right. I guess my first relationship with veterans was my Uncle Harold. I was probably 3 or 4 when he came back from World War II. He was wounded at the Battle of the Bulge, left for dead when they had to retreat, and was found still alive when they came back. They were still taking shrapnel out of him in his 80s. But when I was 3 or 4, I thought I was going to marry him. I was quite disgusted that he went and married some adult woman. He was my first hero. And over the years, it seems as if I just have managed to connect with veterans, and I discovered only recently that probably the connection is post-traumatic stress. I have it for a completely different reason. But in high school, we had a Hungarian freedom fighter come to our high school, a 15-year-old boy, when he left Hungary. He had been the fencing champion of Budapest. And I read his biography, and he doesn't mention this, but he told me at the time that he and other kids were throwing Molotov cocktails at Russian tanks as children.
Oh.
And it was to me that it appeared that none of the other students understood that this was not an American teenage boy they were dealing with, that this was a combat warrior.
Sure.
And they didn't see that. And I could see it the second I met him. And I just thought it was interesting how hard it is for people to recognize that and to relate to it.
Sure.
Because they try to relate to him as if he was Dobie Gillis, and he was not.
Yeah.
So it just has carried forward all these years. And over the years, because I was a writer, people would say, "Can you help me with my resume?" And I started getting a number of people who were getting out of the military who would ask. And then in a job club, I had one fellow who handed me his resume for a review, and I looked at it and I said, "Oh, you're a whistleblower." And he said, "I did everything I could do to hide that. How do you know that?" I said, "There aren't a whole lot of businesses where you could save $300 million on a project. It had to be the government."
Yeah.
And he was really bummed because he said, it ruined my career. It meant that I came out here. I have nothing to offer an employer. I'm disgraced. I said, "Oh my gosh, civilian employers want to save $300 million. Make yourself a contractor and go out and save the world."
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's a matter of perception a lot of the time.
Yeah.
On both sides. One of the fellows that I worked with a while ago came out of the Army, and he said the hardest thing is now when you enter a room, you don't know how you are related to the other people in the room. Because their uniforms don't tell you anything. If everyone in the room is in jeans and a t-shirt, you can't tell who the boss is, who the janitor is. You can't tell who anybody is.
Not necessarily. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So what, as far as, okay, so you start working and helping people out. How long have you actually been doing that?
Probably about 30 years.
Oh, wow.
since I started really focusing on how difficult it is for the veterans.
Sure. So, okay, so I looked on your Reboot Camp website. Really nice, clean website, by the way. And I was looking at your the testimonials area. It seems like people really, really value what you do, and it seems to me, a lot of different branches of the military you have helped out.
It has been a lot of fun. One of the testimonials is from a woman who was a chief warrant officer. She told me, she said, I would rather go back to combat than work on a resume.
Well, I can totally understand that. Trying to get a resume together, and I had a school ask me for doing a resume, and I'm like, I mean, I could put something together, but just the apprehension of sitting down and figuring out what works and what doesn't work, and what people are gonna, what works for them to see, to get a job.
And that's why I use a MasterFile concept. You just put everything you've ever done, and you separate it out so your accomplishments are separate from the employer, so you can sequence them to your advantage. But your MasterFile could be 100 pages. That chief warrant officer, it was 9 months before she finally decided to work on the resume. Oh. I said, you could have had a kid in this amount of time.
No, I totally agree. I was actually looking at on the website the job search roadmap, and it's pretty comprehensive. I'm pretty impressed. I was scrolling and scrolling. I kept scrolling and more, and there's a lot of information, which is awesome to see. A lot of detail in it, which kudos to you for putting that together.
And actually, I used to sit and explain the whole thing to people, and I thought, this is really dumb. And then we can talk after they've read it.
Sure, yeah. Just put it in steps, and then if they have questions, and then you can kind of go from there.
It's a jump start.
Sure, yeah. Cool. Well, is there any? Let's see. I'm curious. So, do you want to talk about a little bit about, I guess, that in itself, your roadmap, more than just your MasterFile, or is there something, that you'd love to be able to speak about?
Well, the MasterFile is probably the key to the whole thing, because once you've created that, and the chief warrant officer, when she said, this weekend I'm putting my MasterFile together. And on Sunday night, she called and she said, all right, I'm sending it to you. It's 96 pages.
Oh, shit. Okay. Huh. Wow.
She had pasted from every evaluation she ever had that she had a soft copy of. Oh, and I said, well, there's a little bit of repetition. And she said, it's my process. Don't question my process.
Well, yeah. I mean, once you get the MasterFile figured out, and then what's your next step after getting the MasterFile together for them?
I think one of the things that happens, a lot of people who've done the MasterFile say, shoot, I'd hire this person. And the thing is, no one ever sees the MasterFile but you.
Sure.
Because you're not going to send 96 pages to somebody. What you do is you make a copy of that MasterFile, you throw out everything that doesn't fit the job you're applying for or the company you're interested in working for, and you get it down to 2 to 3 pages, depending on the level of job you're looking for, that are an almost perfect fit. And here's the thing. Perfection is not what you're looking for. If you're in combat, you're not going to sit there and say, I need to wait for the perfect moment.
Sure.
Or have the perfect conditions. When it's good enough, you're going to act. And that's what you're going to do with your MasterFile. When you pare it down, you're going to act. But there's all these other pieces that need to be in place. But before you even get out, you start making connections. Starting with military.com, where you start connecting with people you served with and people you served with who are already out in the civilian world. And you're not going to say, hi, I'm looking for a job. Can you hire me? you're just going to say, I'm getting out and I've just started on my job search, got any ideas, something like that.
Sure.
So you're not putting them on the spot, but you're putting yourself front of mind. So if they hear about something, then they're going to think, oh, Brian's looking for something and he'd be a good fit for this. And I think one of the big things that people overlook when you've started doing that and you've built your network, connecting with as many people as you can think of, you get on LinkedIn, you get in groups. I like to call it magic. Magic starts to happen. The soldiers from Texas contacted me on LinkedIn and asked if I helped people from out of the state. I said, of course. And magic was his key, because he was coming out here to stay with a cousin and do reconnaissance to see where he wanted to live in the Bay Area, what the job market was like. And I said, well, while you're here, look on meetup.com and find some meetups that fit what you're interested in. And he was interested in software development, had taken classes in it, and had actually done a couple volunteer projects for the VSW and disabled American veterans while he was still in the service. So he had some meat to his resume then. He had some actual projects. And he found a meetup that was for software developers. He went to the meetup. He actually called me on the way home from the meetup. It was about an hour and a half from where he was staying. And he talked all the way home because he said he got there and he walked in. He had decided that a good civilian look, he looked at Gentleman's Quarterly. Silicon Valley jobs, which was pretty funny. So he showed up in slacks and a dress shirt and a cardigan. Okay. That was his civilian uniform. And he walked into the room, and this very attractive, well-dressed lady came up, and she said, "Hi, you're another recruiter, aren't you?" And he was confused for a minute because his last time in the Army was as a recruiter.
Oh.
After 5 days.
Okay.
They decided to go away at 6th deployment. So she said, "You're another recruiter." And he said, "Oh, no, I'm a software developer." She said, "No, you're not. Look around the room. Those are software developers." He said, "Joy, I didn't realize software developers don't own combs or irons." Everybody had messy hair and wrinkled clothes.
Oh, God.
Except for him and the recruiter. But he asked questions during the session, and the guy that was doing the session kept on saying, "That's a really good question. That's a really good question." And other people in the room were saying, "Hey, that was a great question." So he was really getting validated in this meeting. Sure. And at the end of it, he won the guy's book and a drawing. So he's telling me all this on his way home. And he got back to his cousin's place and he stayed up all night reading the book. And I had managed to get an interview for him the next day. The book was Agile Software Development. And the first question the recruiter at this company asked him was, "What do you know about Agile Software Development?" So this is where the magic comes in. If you start doing all the right things, making all the right connections, it feels like magic sometimes. That interview that he had 2 days earlier, somebody had contacted me and said that they might be looking for a software developer. And I said, "Oh, okay, I think I might have one for you." When he went to that interview, one of the things they said was, "This is a really little company." And that's ideal for combat veterans because it requires somebody who can think on their feet and adjust quickly.
Sure. So
they said, "We're a really little company and we don't know if we can hire someone who's so light on skills." And he told me about it. He said, "I have a second interview, but I don't know what to do about that." And I said, "Actually, you might mention that as a recruiter in your last year or so, you have interpersonal skills. You have excellent interpersonal skills, and you think that that's something that most companies need." So he wound up having 5 interviews with that company, and every time they come down to, "We just don't know if we can afford to hire someone so light on experience." And I had told him every time that issue comes up, you remind them about your interpersonal skills. Well, he and his wife had figured they could get by if he got $25 an hour on his first job. And the fifth interview, the guy did like they do in the movies. I've never had it happen to me, but he pushed a piece of paper across the table.
Really?
The veteran picked up the piece of paper and managed to stay cool when he said, I think I can handle that. And it said $50 an hour.
Oh, hell. Okay. Okay. That's a good...
It was just as if there were magic things that happened all the way along the line for him. But it's like when people talk about, oh, how that person is lucky, or someone is an overnight success, when actually it took them 30 years to be an overnight success.
Right.
It's a matter of putting the right things in place ahead of time.
Right. I mean, no, go ahead. I was just gonna say it sounds, I was looking at one of the, one of our LinkedIn chat conversation. It's like, it reminded me of something, and we were talking about the underemployment that you were talking about.
Yes. It's way worse than being unemployed. Unemployed, you have a goal. But when you're underemployed, one of the things I say is it gives you time to go to the dark places. You can't come back and get yourself into a job that has no purpose.
Sure. Nothing
to make you feel worthwhile, because then people they go to the dark places. That's where a lot of the suicides come from, is just coming back and not finding a place where they feel like they're purposeful and valued.
So is that one kind of one of your goals when you speak with soldiers or with transitioning vets? Is kind of that I want to keep you from getting into that dark place?
Yeah. It's just, see, I've had really crummy jobs, and you have plenty of time then to be thinking the wrong kind of thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, the thought processes that go on, when you get out and you got to figure out what you're going to do next. It gets scary, and I'm sure you probably dealt with a lot of people that have experienced a lot of scary, transitioning moments.
Absolutely. I think the one that comes up a lot that just enrages me is the number of times I've had veterans tell me that they were asked by an interviewer how many people they've killed.
Oh my God, really?
Uh-huh.
That's not any question you should ever ask any interview or
That's
interviewee.
right.
Yeah.
I tell people, as I say, if you're ever asked that question, you pick up your stuff quietly and you look the person in the eye and you say, in a very affirmative voice, you say, I served our country honorably and well, and you walk out.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing you can do, because otherwise you'd probably want to, in a veteran's idea of either getting stomping mad or ripping somebody's for lack of a better word, I'm sorry, ripping somebody's head off. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, blow up, do whatever you got to do, but I respect you for telling veterans to say that, because for us to be proud of our service, and to not let somebody goad us into saying something, especially for a dumbass question like that. I mean,
yeah, and you absolutely don't want to work with someone like that.
No, not at all.
The fellow who figured out his civilian uniform from Gentleman's Quarterly, he said one of his big concerns was because he has a good sense of humor, but his sense of humor over 8 years in the Army got kind of Army flavored.
Well, we do have an Army flavor. I mean, our veteran flavor. I totally understand.
wasn't exactly sure how that would go with some software developers who had never served. And they were nervous. When he got there, I said, just talk to them about it. And he said he talked to them about it, and they admitted that they were nervous about what it was going to be like to serve with a combat veteran, to be working with somebody like that. And of course, you see the hideous things about someone with PTSD walked into the office and killed everybody, and the interviewers don't want to be the person who hires that person. So,
well, okay. So here's an observation, and then I'm gonna wrap this episode up. So I would rather have a veteran working for me and on my side, because I know from personal experience on my own mind that my first reaction when there's any kind of danger is to take the danger out or protect the people that are around me. So I can't imagine somebody thinking that, I don't want to work with you because I'm afraid you're going to come in and shoot me. Like that doesn't even that's the worst ever thought process for a veteran. I think that's a lot of times it's killing our opportunity to even get a job, because everybody thinks of us as, okay, so we like to shoot stuff and we like to get mad. No, I'm sorry, but go ahead.
As a child, I was molested in my own home while family parties were going on. The safest I ever felt in my life was when I became a hostess at the Lutheran Servicemen Center in San Francisco. I was raised to be afraid of servicemen. I was told that they were animals, that they had no control. And a lady came to our church and asked if we would volunteer at the Lutheran Servicemen Center. And all of the single adults said no. And I thought, well, that's not Christian. So I guess I have to.
Sure.
And the director laughed about it the whole time I was there, because she said she thought she had developed a Siamese twin. I was so afraid when I got there that I was practically glued to her. And I'll tell you, I never felt so safe in my life as I did with those guys.
Well, the thing is, and this is the biggest thing that it's a gripe of mine, is that when people don't see, what we've gone through and the training we've gone through and what we're capable of, but what we're also, what we will go through to be that better person and to take care of people. I think we get roped up into boxes all the time, unfortunately, and it just. And I'm so grateful for you, Joy, that you're able to work with people, with soldiers that are transitioning out, because to give them at least some kind of hope, I really appreciate you coming on the episode and being able to chat a little bit about your organization. So yeah, I thank you for coming on, though.
I'm happy you invited me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I want to give you kind of about 30 seconds. I usually do this for soldiers, if it's like a free speech zone kind of thing. So if there's really anything that you kind of want to say, kind of get out there, it could be a PSA for your, what you do or whatnot, or even for some soldier that's hearing this, just something that you feel like somebody needs to hear.
Yes, rebootcamp.us. If you need a little bit of help with your job search, get in touch with me. And the Daughters of the American Revolution love you.
Nice. Okay. Well, thank you. And then we will actually, just for the viewers, this is actually going to be episode 1 of 2. So the next episode will be basically just talking about transition and opening it up to talking about soldier stories. So thank you again, guys, everybody, for listening, and thank you, Joy, for joining the episode. And that is the episode.